Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your weekly astrology forecast for the week of May 4th to the 10th of 2025. So before we get into the charts for this week, of course, if you're looking for a reading with me, whether it is recorded or live readings, I do both, or any other ways to support me, all those links are in the description below if you're on YouTube, and in my bio if you're on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, just go to my link tree. Everything is there. All right. And before we head into the charts again for this week, of course, when I do these readings, I get stuff through intuitively, and we do have to remember, like I always say, my guidance has been, and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things, meaning things are always subject to change. They will happen within the energetic themes that exist within that, as the universe is infinitely creative and you can do things, but it'll show up in ways that are maybe unexpected or unknown, and certain things that, like when we consider manifestation and how all that works, etc., right? So, but basically what I'm saying is that if I get stuff through intuitively, it is always subject to change when talking about a specific situation, because we all have free will. Okay, so if something like that happens, understand that it's from the point of which I'm recording this video that is a possibility in moving forward. However, nothing is set in stone, right? So just be mindful of that. However, things are still likely going to happen regarding the energies, like the energetic template that is existing at these current times, right? And a lot of stuff that does come through, it does relate to like earthly things, but this is on a general societal level, as well as a lot of it comes from a higher level as well, or happening on a higher level, ready to come in to be manifest at the same time. So anyways, with all that being said here, let me jump into the chart on my end and we can get going for this week. So we're going to start here on Sunday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Isn't that Star Wars Day or something? May 4th. You know, it's interesting. I was actually thinking earlier, because I was thinking about this date, and the idea of like the force or that energy, you know, it's not really as much of maybe a fantasy as people really think it is. If you're someone that does Reiki or other forms of energy healing, things like that, or even, you know, other aspects of the force, or being a Jedi, you know, in terms of like that intuition, understanding kind of certain things, there's kind of a lot more to that than maybe what we realize. But anyway, so may the 4th be with you on this wonderful Sunday, May 4th. Another thing I did want to mention too, regarding from last week's video, I was confused about the Mars leaving shadow thing. So Mars does leave shadow on May 2nd, I believe it was. So that's when that happened. I kind of got my weeks mixed up. I thought it was this week and not, because, yeah. It's just, there's a lot going on in this head of mine, so I'm sorry for that. And also, regarding the new moon in Taurus, one thing I did want to mention too, that I don't think I mentioned in last week's video, is that this new moon, because I talked about that T-square, so it's not going to show up here, but there was obviously that T-square with the Pluto, Mars, as well as, if we consider Black Moon Lilith, there was a grand cross that existed here, and it was very like big change type energy, okay? Big shifts. I believe I called that video like seismic shifts on this new moon in Taurus. However, that energy is going to be highlighted for the entire lunar month, right? Because that new moon highlights the beginning of that lunar month. And so because there was that grand cross, or if you want to consider it just the T-square, but the grand cross energy that was highlighted there, that's very much strongly highlighted for this month. And we'll see as we go into this week how much that comes up again. It may come up again, it may not, but that specific, well, I'm saying that because week specifically may have other things highlighted that are coming through, but as a general energy for the month, that grand cross is going to be there. If you just want to say it that way, I guess. However, also, one thing that I was guided to, again, as I opened my phone to look at my little list of aspects that are happening here, because I like to do this just on the fly as I go. And Pluto goes retrograde today on Sunday, May 4th. Well, not today as I'm recording this, but today as you're probably watching this. So Pluto goes retrograde on Sunday, May 4th. And one thing that I've got with this, because Pluto was involved in that square, in that T-square, that grand cross with that new moon in Taurus, that whatever shifts or big changes that were highlighted and pushed through to come through that, because Pluto is now retrograde, it was in that shadow period and now it's going retrograde, that is going to be highlighted again throughout this Pluto retrograde. And remember, it's in Aquarius. So we're dealing with, like I said, those aspects of change, aspects of our own uniqueness, individuality, where we fit in, connecting, disconnecting, connecting with our tribe, disconnecting from people that don't relate to us, kind of stuff like that. It's not that you hate the people that are not on your tribe. It's just that you have to let people be their individual selves, but you have to also be your individual self as well, and understand that you still have a place in the collective here with your own uniqueness, just like they do, just like everybody else does, right? So it's that kind of aspect. And this, of course, I'm not immune to this energy as well. For those of you who are maybe want to know, I've kind of made the decision to look for a job and make a move basically across the country, okay? Across the world would be nice, but that's not really possible right now. Just across the country, it's something that I just need to do. All right, so again, that's the kind of things that are highlighted here. And of course, for me, that's going to take, maybe a few months to accomplish, right? So, and that's the kind of vibe that is coming through with this Pluto retrograde, as it highlighted on that new moon in Taurus and like that shadow period and stuff coming through. We're highlighting those aspects of change and stuff that were coming through there. And of course, you have to remember that that new moon in Taurus was when that eclipse season finally ended, and where we're kind of moving beyond that, and we had eclipses before that and eclipse, and all the energy before that with this Aries energy, and Venus is back in Aries now, so it's highlighting, this aspect of self versus others in relationship, but finding balance between that and honoring our own identity self when it involves other people, etc. Watch last week's video, okay, where I talk more about that. All right, so that is that initial hit that I got there regarding this Pluto retrograde that will be starting to happen on this day. We also have this first moon quarter here with Sun in Taurus and Moon in Leo. This is obviously a fixed square. However, what I feel with this, and with the fixed energy as well, is that this is going to be maybe more of a highlighted expression of our own value and worth, right? Because we've had a lot of this Aries stuff, and now we're moving into this Taurus season where I feel like it's the shift of identity, self, sovereignty, and seeing our own value and worth. And maybe this can relate monetarily as well, right? However, our value and worth as human is more than just monetary. I just want to highlight that. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this can deal with like money stuff for people as well too, is that's Taurus's vibe, okay? But what this is it's highlighting and maybe more expressing maybe what has been previously unexpressed, because we're kind of dealing with the mood, subconscious, emotional level here. That which is relating to our own value, own worth. I heard the word sovereignty again coming through, because remember, we have Venus here, the ruler of Taurus, in Aries, okay? We're dealing with that identity, sovereignty, that aspect of self. And I've talked previously a lot about this Aries energy and how all those retrogrades and stuff were kind of like that rebirth of our self-identity, and also rebirth of like that masculine energy as well. Remember, we all both have divine masculine and divine feminine within all of us, and that doesn't matter what your sex, gender expression, sexual orientation is. Okay, that is all still valid, of course, but we all have both energies within all of us. Okay, and of course, Mars here, the ruler of Aries, is also in Leo too. So there's like this expression, but I think it's this aspect of identity, sovereignty, freedom as it relates to our own value and worth, because we can see our own value and worth. We're beginning to express that. What is unconscious has come to light, right? I'm kind of being reminded here of like the moon card in tarot, right? It can be seen as like that icky stuff or like your intuition seeing behind, but it's that aspect of bringing what's hidden to light, or bringing the unconsciousness to light in that sense, in terms of, our own value, our own worth, etc. in that way with that quarter moon. And of course, again, with the Pluto retrograde beginning in Aquarius regarding that grand cross with that new moon in Taurus, that aspect of change regarding our own value and worth, and new big shifts that are occurring right within that, and maybe beginning to express some of that on that quarter moon as well. Okay, we're also going to have this Uranus in Taurus in opposition to Juno here in Scorpio. So again, what I'm getting with this is aspects of change regarding partnerships, contractual partnerships. This could be soul contracts and stuff as well. This is a transformation. Initially what I heard was like a rework and a rebirth of a lot of that stuff, but it relates to aspect of change. One thing that, again, that they're telling me here is value and worth in terms of our own uniqueness, individuality, identity, etc. with this Uranus in Taurus, where Uranus rules Aquarius. That's where Pluto is going to go retrograde, right? Pluto doesn't go retrograde till a bit later than what I have this chart set at. I have it early in the morning, but it does go retrograde on this day. Okay, so I'm just... for those of you that are like, well, it's not showing it's retrograde. Well, it will. Just chill. Wait till we get to the next day, okay? When time does it actually go retrograde? 9:20 a.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday. So basically, I don't know, within a couple hours of this chart. Anyways, Uranus opposition Juno here. So Juno retrograde in Scorpio, dealing with that transformation of those partnerships, contractual partnerships, that kind of stuff, etc. Right? So it's a reworking of a lot of that stuff because Juno is in fact retrograde. Okay, so it's retrograding to relook at and transform and rebirth and do that. And this can be intense, right? This can be really intense regarding whatever those partnerships are, whether it's a soul contract partnership, whether it's business contracts, whether it's marriages, whether it's whatever. Things that are shaking up, changing, destabilizing, being rebirthed, reborn, etc. And again, this could be other things too, whether it's like contracts between nations or contracts between, like I said, business contracts between companies, contracts between people working for companies. But it could be solely for you on that level, but it also could be what I'm feeling is like more of a grander thing, in terms of more the grand scheme of our lives or the grand scheme of the world, etc. And how that is coming through there regarding our own value and worth and maybe what we see in that. And it's like, yeah, no, we need to change this. It needs to be reworked and changed, right? So regarding, everything I've already talked about with this Pluto retrograde, that Grand Cross and Taurus, new moon, etc. All right. We also have Mercury here in biquintile to Juno as well. So what I'm getting with this is this aspect of identity, sovereignty, and communicating and being aware of that. There's an aspect of awareness that is coming through here. Remember, Jupiter is a Mercury sign of Gemini, expanding that aspect of awareness, of communication, of that kind of stuff, right? So what I'm feeling is that awareness of our own individuality, sovereignty, etc. And what I'm getting to is on a world stage, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which relates to the world, right? That expansiveness, right? Or like world travel, that kind of stuff. But I'm not necessarily feeling travel here. What I feel is like more of a world type thing regarding aspects of like sovereignty, independence, that kind of thing, that is either communicated, made aware, or coming through here. And there are certain things that have gone on that have triggered a lot of things surrounding this idea, either good or bad, regarding freedom, sovereignty, individuality, etc. Again, it can go both ways based on the events that have been happening, okay, in terms of whether it's good or bad, okay. But having our own freedom and our own sovereignty is good. When it's something is forced upon us in certain ways, that is not so good, okay, because that needs to be a choice that comes from us. So you can relate that to, what I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say is that there also may be things that are hidden in terms of that, in terms of why is that really happening and what is really going on, because we do have to remember that there's always more than meets the eye, right? Whether we like it or not, it's like, okay, what's really going on here? Is the premise nefarious or is it not, right? So there's a lot that we still don't know. Okay, and then with this, also this Mercury here, it's in a biquintile. So again, this is kind of the unknown, okay? Or maybe this stuff is happening behind the scenes. There's work going on behind the scenes surrounding whatever this transformation is. And what I'm hearing maybe is more communication happening behind the scenes. regarding our individuality, sovereignty, etc. Regarding, and it's creative work behind the scenes here with this biquintile, regarding the transformation, rebirth, and reworking at whatever these partnerships, contracts, that kind of stuff is that is needing to occur here. Okay, so it looks like we're kind of, because this is a week after we've had that new moon grand cross in Taurus, and it's like we seem to be still working on this, whatever these big changes are, etc., to the extent, or to this extent that we're going on here. So let's have a look at, move on for the rest of the week here. So let's move on to May 5th here, Monday. And of course, interestingly enough, we're going to have Juno again here in sextile to the south node and in trine to the north node. Now, like I said, with this nodal configuration, south node Virgo, north node Pisces, is basically letting go of what we thought was practical. What we thought was practical, what we thought was working, what we thought was going to be normal in our day-to-day lives, just ain't gonna fucking cut it anymore, right? It's just not gonna fly, okay? And we're heading into this unknown territory. Or for this unknown territory, because it's Pisces, it can be created by us. It can be anything. Of course, that goes at any time, but with Pisces especially, because Pisces is so unknown, it's so veiled, it's this aspect of like faith and trust, spirituality, ultimate creativity, limitless creativity, that can kind of scare us, especially when we're so used to this Virgo, this is how it is, this is how I've laid it out, this is how it needs to be, these are all the details. And you go to Pisces and it's like, well, that could be it, but it could also be this and this and this, and we could go here, 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 and then end up here, and then go here, and then maybe we could go here, and you know what, actually, I'm going to do this instead. Okay, that's kind of what it is, but you just have to really trust in that, trust in the unknown, that there's multiple paths to get where you need to go, or there's multiple ways to get to understand things, right? Whereas Virgo is so like, it must be this and it must be that, so there's, and I'm not saying that Virgo energy is necessarily bad, because it has its place, because you do need to understand details, you do need to understand things. Like once you get to maybe your destination in Pisces where you needed to go, it's like, okay, now we got to focus on the details to understand. That's where this energy balances out, right? So neither one is better than the other, they both need to exist. It's just that in terms of this south node here, north node here, what we thought was practical before isn't going to be practical anymore. And when we get into new direction, there's going to be new aspects of that Virgo practicality that maybe we'll need to address and that exists there, right? That's kind of all I'm saying, okay? So I'm just going to do a quick double check there, because we usually have tech issues, so we're not yet, and hopefully not at all. Anyways. Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury in sextile to Jupiter. So again, this relates to what I was talking about for Sunday as well, in terms of this expansion of this awareness, and even on a global scale, again, of our own sovereignty, our own identity, communicating through that. And what I feel is there's a very strong expansion regarding whatever this behind the scenes energy is surrounding those changes within partnership, contract, that kind of stuff, etc. Coming through here. All right, let's move on to Tuesday the 6th here. On Tuesday, May 6th, we are going to have the Sun in semi-square to Neptune here at the beginning of Aries. All right. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about with Pisces, because usually I can get stuff right away, and maybe this is something that they're giving me now, is like that Neptunian vibe. It's like, okay, what is this? Do we know? It's like, it's kind of that like unknown. So it's like, do we know? Okay, now they're telling me it's dealing with this more compassionate aspect of dealing with this value and worth that comes with this Taurus energy in this season now. Okay, so this is kind of the vibe we're on now with this Taurus, where it is aspect of value, worth. I'm feeling the stubbornness of Taurus in this as well, but there's an aspect of this compassionate identity, this new masculine, but what it is it's also changeable. So it's like, okay, it's changing. How the fuck do I say this? It's changing like or it's maybe more of like we've changed, but it's changing. It's changing, understanding our own value and worth within our own identity and sovereignty. All right, and the reason I say that is because Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, Pisces is a mutable sign. It's malleable. So there's that aspect of changing that and seeing our own value and worth within our own aspect of self-identity, etc., as this is related to everything that I've already said previously as well. It's almost like maybe this is something that's unknown that comes through in some kind of a way here with this, but I think there's also a message with that Neptunian energy in what I was talking about, regarding that Pisces stuff. So pay attention to this, in that we may not fully know or understand what this is until we get there. Okay? And so again, maybe that's the North Node in Pisces, that's a Pisces Neptunian energy, right? So, and for those of you who maybe haven't watched me before, when I'm going to burp like that, it's the guide saying, yes, pay attention to this. This is something that you need to hear. All right. Also on this day, on Tuesday here, we're going to have this Venus in sextile to Pluto now retrograde. So what I'm getting here instantly is this is that reworking and that transformation of these relationship type of aspects and the changes that have needed to be made here regarding our own value, worth, our uniqueness, individuality, and is that being respected within our relationships, right? And if not, then something needs to be transformed and changed to be able to respect that. Okay, you need to head in your own direction. You need to, let your own weirdness show, let your freak flag fly, right? So that's kind of that vibe, but that's respecting your own self and your own identity within relationships or regarding other people, but also respecting it from those other people as well. Okay, and allowing them to make the changes that they need to make in their lives for them in order to fit in where they need to fit in the world regarding their own uniqueness and individuality, etc., within that and within the relationships, etc. So we could see aspects of change, transformation regarding partnerships or relationships, but as it relates to the aspect of self-identity and sovereignty. And what I'm also hearing is not giving a fuck what other people think. Okay, and that's a strong aspect of that. You should be able to be in a relationship with someone, and it doesn't matter what they think. They need to love you for who you are, not for some facade or because of certain things, or because you're only hot and nothing else, or something like that. Like it's like, you know what I mean? They need to love you for you, and you need to love them for them. And that's not just necessarily in romantic partnerships, that's in all kinds of partnerships, right? And that's to be respected. And I think that's something that's I think very difficult in our world right now, with such extreme division in so many ways. I mean, if you just look at politics, you can see that extreme division that exists there, which is why I don't like to touch on that, because that's manipulated to be that way on purpose. Because, like I've said before, it's that divided we fall, united we stand type of thing. If they keep us fighting each other, then those that are in control remain in control. Whereas if we come together, those that remain in control no longer have control. Okay, so our systems aren't necessarily maybe what they should be in a lot of ways as well, in that sense, right? So we have to be mindful of that and understand that, a lot of what we've been taught, shown, etc., is a manipulation in a lot of ways, and that we need to learn to listen to maybe our own hearts. However, I'm kind of getting off the path here, maybe regarding what this actually is, or maybe not, but maybe not. I'm kind of feeling drawn back to it a bit, but what I'm just trying to say is it's this honoring this aspect of individuality and who we truly are and how we fit in, and etc., the independence of ourselves as well as others that is being brought up here, and just everything that I've already said surrounding that. All right. Also on this day here too, we're going to have this Mercury come into conjunction to Chiron, and interesting still in sextile to Jupiter. So there could be communication that comes up surrounding, or an awareness that comes up, especially I'm being drawn to this biquintile here again to the Juno energy, this changing of partnerships, contracts, etc., based upon our awareness of where we've been wounded, hurt in terms of our own identity, own self, and own sovereignty in a lot of ways. There is likely to be an expansion of awareness that is occurring here. Maybe people are beginning to talk about it, beginning to see that kind of stuff really truly coming up. But however, with this Juno in Scorpio, and Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio too, I'm going to touch on that. But with this Juno in Scorpio, and then Juno retrograde, reworking a lot of contracts, a lot of that kind of energy, commitments with other people in order to not be hurt, in order to heal the wound, in order to move forward in a space where we can be our independent self and sovereign self and not feel so hurt anymore about it, right? And I say that with Black Moon Lilith here in Scorpio. Remember, that was part of that Grand Cross on that new moon in Taurus. Though with Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, Black Moon Lilith is, where we've been outcast, but also how we can heal that. Of course, in Scorpio, my main point with it was this is major transformation and focus on healing that and transforming that and changing and moving on and facing it for those that have been outcasted in a myriad of ways, in all kinds of different ways. More specifically focused for Scorpio would be on maybe your life force energy, your sexual energy, relating to sex and sexuality, intimacy, as well as things, maybe like sexual orientation and things like that as well, bringing that stuff to the surface in terms of maybe where people have been outcast and transformed. That's more of a highlight in Scorpio. I say that because those are the themes that Scorpio rules. However, Scorpio also rules just transformation in general, facing what you gotta face in order to transform and heal like the phoenix rising from the ashes. So yes, that aspect of intimacy, sex, sexuality, sacral energy, life force energy, that kind of stuff is very much highlighted. However, this is all of like everything in terms of where we've been outcasted that now needs to be faced and ultimately healed and transformed, right? So, and that was on, like I said, you can watch last week's video surrounding that new moon in Taurus. And now that's highlighted not just for this month, but like I said, maybe through this Pluto retrograde as well, because Pluto is in square to this, is still in square to this as Pluto's retrograde, right? So there's that aspect of it. Remember, Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. So dealing with that aspect of our uniqueness, individuality, where we fit in, and understanding that that is valid. And through healing where we've been outcasted in those ways, whether that is through sexual orientation or whatever other thing that it could possibly be, right, that I've mentioned or even not mentioned with that energy. And that can be highlighted in terms of our aspect of self-identity, what we're wanting to bring up here. But this behind-the-scenes transformation surrounding these committed partnerships, contrast, and this could be an ending of certain contracts, partnerships as well, as that transformation could be that. Scorpio also rules death. There's that aspect of death there, but there's a death and rebirth in some way, but that could be an ending of one thing and the beginning of another, right? So just keep that in mind. All right, so that is Tuesday the 6th. Let's move on to Wednesday the 7th here. We're going to have this Mars in Leo in quintile to Uranus in Taurus. What I get with this is, again, this expression, unique expression of value and worth, but as it comes from maybe a more masculine perspective, okay, or that passionate expression of our self, our identity, etc. Remember, Mars ruling Aries here. Mars is out of shadow now, so we're moving forward here. So whatever was reworking all of that Mars retrograde, all of those retrogrades that happen in Aries, Mercury, Venus, those eclipses, all of that stuff, we're beginning to move forward in maybe a new where all the new is kind of beginning to come online. We're kind of shedding a lot of this old stuff now. There's change that has to occur here. But with that, a lot of that change happening through those fixed signs, that fixed energy, that could be slow, number one, but that could also be big things, heavy things that really need to shift and change in our lives. That could also feel like a crisis point. It could also feel like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. It could feel like you're really stepping outside of your comfort zone in a lot of ways, because that's what that fixed energy does. Because you're moving, with that change in fixed energy, you're moving from one thing to another. And fixed energy does not want to move, but you're fixating on one. It's like, this isn't working anymore. We have to fixate on something else, right? So it tends to be heavier. It tends to be bigger. It tends to be a lot of that stuff that people don't want to deal with, right? We're dealing with fixed signs like Taurus. Taurus doesn't want to change. We're dealing with Scorpio, which is transformation. People don't want to face what they got to face, right? But that's Scorpio. We're dealing with Leo energy. You just want to be yourself and express it, right? We're dealing with Aquarius, but Aquarius is fixated on change. Okay, so when you have that grand cross and that energy, it's like, holy it's so crazy and wild, but it's something that I feel like it's something that needs to occur. And what I'm hearing is from time to time. Something that needs to occur from time to time. The only constant in this world is change. Okay, and sometimes that change has to be kind of forced or pushed. Remember that grand cross is squares and oppositions, forced and pushed in order for that to occur, right? So, and again, squares and oppositions are not bad things. They can be perceived as bad. It can feel bad when you're going through it because you're like, oh my God. But what is your perception of that? Is that stuff that needs to change? That energy is pushing you to move in a new direction or to push to do certain things, which ultimately is for your best and highest good in a lot of ways. Obviously, this energy can be misused in negative ways. For sure, it can. I'm not saying that it can't. But when you use it from a higher level and a higher vibration, these squares and oppositions are not bad energy at all. In fact, they can be very good for what needs to happen and what needs to occur and what needs to be done, right? So again, with this quintile here to Uranus, like I said, we're relating to this expression of value and worth. And what I'm feeling is tying into this Leo energy, it's like, I want to express that. I have my own value and worth. This is who I am. And this is what I want to express in that way, right? So, sorry, I just had to check on something there. And that relates to our value and worth regarding our uniqueness, individuality, etc. And what I'm hearing again is it's this aspect of change as well that is coming through, that is maybe changing us to be able to express that, but the changes that we need to make to honor our own value and worth and independence, etc., and our own aspect of self-expression as well that has now come online. Okay, or maybe already has, or always has been there, but is now like being expressed in a new way. All right, we're also going to have here this Mercury in quincunx to Juno now. Okay, so we're still kind of on this conjunction to Chiron, but now we're moving to a quincunx. So there's an integration. There's maybe the frustration that's kind of occurring here regarding this transformation. We're kind of, because, you know, we dealt a lot with this fixed energy that I have already talked about. Even though Mercury's in a cardinal sign, Mercury's still Scorpio is still that fixed, that fixed kind of energy, and we're kind of maybe coming into awareness that's like, okay, we got to transform this, we got to change this, but this can be frustrating, we got to integrate this in some way and make this kind of work together. What I'm being drawn to is maybe more of a Mars vibe, because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio and of course the ruler of Aries. As again, this deals with self-identity, etc., and facing certain things in order to transform and change certain contracts, partnerships, etc., in order to maybe heal this aspect of self-identity, whatever that has come up, our own sovereignty, freedom, etc., through this expanded awareness here that is occurring. There's still that sextile with Jupiter. All right, also on this day, we're going to have Venus in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith. Now again, this Venus in Aries, how is this currently being used right now? Well, it's like I've already said, and what I've been guided here with this aspect of our own identity in respect to others. Are others honoring our own individuality? Are we honoring that within others, right? Excuse me. To pay attention to that. With this quincunx here to Black Moon Lilith, are we integrating whatever transformation and changes need to be healed regarding where we have been outcasted in the past surrounding that aspect of independence, our own sovereignty, freedom, etc.? Are other people allowing that for us in our lives? And if not, is that how we're being outcast? Is that how that's being happened? And I feel like with this Grand Cross, etc., on that new moon in Taurus, we've realized that and we're making a lot of changes in our lives, or they're really going to start to come about. And with this, there's something that needs to be integrated here surrounding whatever transformation and change and healing needs to occur surrounding that, where we've been outcasted in terms of that Black Moon Lilith energy, in terms of us and either the people around us, and is our sovereignty, identity, etc. being respected, and are we respecting that towards other people as well? Okay. Also on this day too, oh no, that looks like that's tomorrow. So, okay. Let's move on then to Thursday the 8th here. All right, where we're going to have, oh boy, we're going to have Mercury here in quincunx to the South Node and semi-sextile to the North Node. So again, I think this is going off of, and maybe why I was drawn to this for the previous day and what I was already talking about was because with this quincunx to the South Node, we need to be letting go of those things that we thought were going to be practical, etc., that are not, because of the wounds that we faced regarding our own independence, individuality, sovereignty, etc., that has now come into our awareness through all of this past week and previous, etc. Okay? And this semi-sextile here to the North Node in Pisces, the new direction forward, which we may not even fully know. It's being written, right? Or it's existing maybe in a higher realm. If you want to take this from a manifestation perspective, it's existing there, but we can't see it yet. We're heading in that direction. We're going there, and we're just flying on a fucking hope and a dream and trust and faith just to get where we need to go. But that's North Node in Pisces. You just have to trust. You honestly just have to trust. But we're heading into a new space. What I'm hearing also is compassion. We're heading into a more compassionate space too surrounding this, and not so nitpicky in terms of maybe that practical sense from before. But again, there's an integration here. Remember, Mercury is actually also ruling the South Node, as Mercury rules Virgo. So there's an integration here that needs to occur surrounding what needs to get let go of. And it could feel frustrating surrounding our own independent sovereignty. It could be wounding. It could be bringing that up and being like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to let go of this. What I thought was practical, what I thought was right, what I thought was working, it's gone now, and I'm heading into an unknown space, into unknown territory surrounding all of this, right? Also on this day, Mercury is going to be in a semi-sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So again, this is recognizing our own value and worth, and this could be frustrating, releasing what we once knew, what we thought was practical. But in order to honor ourselves and our own value and worth and that awareness that has come up, and what I'm getting with this too is this is also like a change of mind. This is a change of mind. This is surrounding that aspect of change, of that integration that needs to occur in whatever needs to be released in that practical sense in order to this change of mind. And in Taurus, those can be big shifts, but it's almost learning to see the value in that. I feel like through our own value and worth, we see the value in that, and that what creates this change of mind. Through our own uniqueness, individuality, etc. And that creates that change of mind regarding stepping away from where we've been wounded and hurt previously in the past. All right, so that is Thursday the 8th. Let's move on to, where are we? Friday, May 9th, where we're just going to have Mercury here now in semi-sextile to Saturn. So now it's like I said, Saturn in Pisces is the dissolution of this malefic energy. Saturn is about to leave Pisces and move into Aries. So those who are, approaching 30 or around 30 years old, I haven't really looked at that. If you have your Saturn in Pisces, you're experiencing your Saturn return, okay? But with the Saturn coming into Aries, I do know that this is around the time of basically Elder Gen Z from like the mid 90s. I think it's probably around 96 if you were born around that time. you're going to be experiencing your Saturn return. The fact that I'm saying that Gen Z is experiencing their first Saturn return at this point makes me feel really fucking old. But they are, okay? They're the older versions of them are 30 now, approaching 30. Anyway, so with that, and of course, we'll get to Saturn in Aries when we get there, but in terms of a Saturn return in general, Saturn in Aries, Saturn is where you need to expand. That's where your growth lies. In Aries, that's within your own self, your own identity, your own sovereignty. You've been restricted, likely restricted, depending on what house it falls in, what it's aspecting in your chart, etc. You've been restricted in those ways, and that's where you need to expand. And that's also where you need to set boundaries in order to expand, oddly enough, because that's Saturn is the ability to say no. Saturn teaches you through restriction, but through that you learn to say no to the things that are restricting you, to set a boundary so that you can expand in the ways that you need to. In this case, in Aries, in terms of your own self, your own identity, freedom, sovereignty, etc. All right, your own passion, expression, etc. Right, and of course that can relate to where your Mars is in your chart. What is the house ruler of where your Saturn is in your chart, and other things. I'm saying that on a general level because it's a lot more to it when you come to an actual birth chart to do a reading on someone like that, right? So there's a hell of a lot more to this than what a lot of people realize. And you're also not just your sun sign either, okay? I'm just going to put that there. But anyway, with this semi-sextile here to Saturn, again, it's that dissolution of that malefic energy, that restriction becomes malleable. What I'm feeling is maybe more of a compassion to oneself, because you have to remember Mercury is still in that conjunction to Chiron there, wanting to heal those wounds, but there's this more compassion to oneself in terms of maybe where we have been restricted before, where we felt we've been controlled, and especially as that comes with other people. We've got Venus in Aries here, other people versus our sense of sovereignty, that black moon Lilith and Scorpio, healing that as well, where we've been outcasted in that sense. And really a lot of this stuff is coming up, and we have to look at this, Mercury is building an opposition to black moon Lilith here, so there's an out of sign opposition that is occurring here with that black moon Lilith in that semi-sextile to Saturn. So this can also go both ways. We can feel like shit through this because this stuff is coming up where we're recognizing these restrictions, but it can also feel like we're dissolving this, using this mutable energy of Pisces and this aspect of compassion as well to dissolve this negative aspects of Saturn previously so that we can expand in new directions. And also this cardinal aspect of this Aries energy, and also dealing with the aspect of our self-identity, etc. And with this Mercury here, and wanting to move forward. So there's like endings and beginnings that are occurring here. And because Mercury is still in conjunction to that Chiron in terms of healing those wounds that have come up, it's like ending that maybe the restriction regarding that and moving in a new direction surrounding that, and through this transformation of where we've been outcast in those certain ways as well. All right, that is Friday the 9th. Let's move on to Saturday the 10th here. And this is when we're going to have Mercury coming into Taurus. Okay, so again, that build up to that opposition to Black Moon Lilith there is really occurring. And what I'm feeling is this surrounding value and worth, and seeing and bringing awareness to that in terms of, where we've been outcasted, but also in transforming and healing that as well. So pay attention to that as that comes through here. Mercury in Taurus, what I feel is just very grounded energy, and very, because like I said, Taurus doesn't like to do things it doesn't want to do. And what I feel with this could be very much now communication that can relate to boundaries surrounding aspects of our own value and worth, right? Is how I kind of feel this coming through here. In this way. Okay, so let me see if I can get anything else with Mercury and Taurus. Let's kind of feel into this and see Mercury and Taurus. It's kind of basically what I already said. This could be very, I almost want to say stubborn communication. But this isn't in a bad way, because I think in everything that has culminated up to this point, we're now maybe realizing own value and worth. We're kind of healing these things right now. We're really beginning to see this, especially with this opposition to Black Moon Lilith. And after that conjunction to Chiron, in terms of our wounds healing, etc., that now we're beginning to see this. And again, with this Jupiter in Gemini, Mercury sign, expanding on that awareness, but also with the South Node in Virgo, releasing what is no longer serving us in a practical sense, in terms of, you know, our own value and worth, what we thought was practical, all these nitpicky, I'm getting like that nitpicky little stuff. It's like that stuff just isn't going to work for us anymore. We're moving in a new direction, right? And we need to heal this stuff, and we need to understand and learn our own value and worth, etc. And this could be an expansive awareness of that surrounding money and that kind of stuff as well. So it can deal with our own value and worth, but it can also relate to this towards aspects of money and that kind of things, to our material things, etc. All right, so anyway, that's the end of the week. That is Saturday, May 10th there. I'm going to bring it back to myself, and that is all I have for this week. If you have made it this far in this video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so that I know you're a real one, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.